Alright guys, here we go with another video. For those of you who didn't see my last video, it was a very emotional, taxing video that I didn't want to come out with. I did end up coming out with it. It got a ton of views. And I think a lot of them are just people who really enjoy watching BFG have a meltdown. And that's about as close to a meltdown as you're probably going to see me have on this show. And I broke a lot of rules. I broke a lot of my own rules on that particular video. And it's been frustrating to come up with ideas. And actually, it hasn't been hard. It's been actually really easy to come up with ideas to come on here and do another video. I can't keep talking about the same subject over and over again, though. I think you guys get tired of hearing about it. I could talk about it forever, but it's only going to put me in a particular mood that, frankly, I don't really feel like being in for the rest of this offseason at all, forever, to tell you the truth, because as Redskins fans, we know what that feeling is like over and over and over again, because the owners of this football franchise insist that we go through it over and over and over again. I think they get some sort of deep-seated marginal satisfaction out of putting their fans through hell. But having said that, there's definitely some other topics going on with this football team that we honestly should cover. And I'm going to go into that in this video, mainly some of the off-season acquisitions and losses that this team has gone through. Going to cover some of the players that we've acquired, some of the players that we've lost, and some of the players that we have retained. And we're going to take a look at some of the NFL draft prospects for the 2017 season, some ideas that I have. I'm going to be going into a little bit more in depth. I got to do a lot more research on some of these players, and that's not necessarily something I like doing as far as collegiate players go, but it does definitely give you something to do in the off season. So I'm planning on putting together some a list of some prospects, some individuals that have caught my eye, because there have already been some individuals that the NFL tends to overhype. This happens every single year, whether you've got the Mel Kipers or whomever, the McShays of the world that tend to overhype people that I feel they're completely wrong against. And I think it only prompts individuals like myself to come up with videos to kind of counteract some of that. But the only difference is these guys are making a pretty good living at doing what it is that they do, and obviously we are not. So, having said that, we're going to go ahead and go right on into the laundry list of individuals that we have acquired. Now, obviously, I'm going to go into the list of individuals that we have retained. Taking a look at some of the players that we've retained Will Compton. We've retained Chris Thompson, running back. Will Compton being the inside linebacker. Chris Thompson's being an individual who is tendered. If another team wants to sign him, we have the ability to. We have the right of first refusal, basically. The right of first refusal being that we have we have ability to match an offer sheet that is given to him. If we do not match an offer sheet, he gets a better offer than another team, goes to another team. We get compensation for him, and I do believe the compensation on Chris Thompson is going to be a second-round draft pick. However, the awesomeness that is Will Compton, who went undrafted, is the same situation. However, we get no compensation if he's offered an offer sheet that we do not necessarily want to match. Which kind of sucks, but that is the way that it is. We ended up also retaining Ty Nsekhe. Ty Nsekhe I think Ty Nsekhe is one of the big secrets of the NFL right now. He's an individual who can obviously play that tackle position, and he's right. He would be a starter on just about any other football team. On ours, he's a backup. He's a very, very good backup, and he, as far as I'm concerned, would have been one of the priorities on this offseason to try to retain and keep on this football team at a marginal value, mind you. But I have a lot of confidence if anything happens to Morgan Moses this season, or maybe even a Trent Williams, that Ty Nsekhe definitely has the ability to go in and fill at any one of those spots, and our offense would show very little momentum shift in the lack of experience. There's one position that not a lot of teams have a lot of depth, and I think that's a huge gem for us. So having Ty Nsekhe, I think, was one of the biggest off-season acquisitions or retentions for us for this football team, and it's great for our offense. Too bad we can't do the same thing on defense. Vincent Painter, offensive lineman, I don't know who you are. Frankly, I don't care. But we did retain you. Congratulations to you. Happy birthday. Ziggy Hood, defensive lineman. Now, Ziggy Hood's an interesting situation, kind of a project special teamer guy that we brought in to play defensive line along with Chris Baker. Now, I think Ziggy Hood was good because of Ricky Jean-Francois, because of Chris Baker, two individuals who are no longer on this football team. if it's going to be just Ziggy Hood and whoever it is that we get out of the draft, I really don't think we're going to see much out of Ziggy Hood this year. Ziggy Hood was a fairly good, marginal, comparable individual to another individual who was very good. In other words, a Chris Baker playing alongside you is going to make you look good because most of that concentration is going to be on a Chris Baker. Then you have the ability of a Ziggy Hood to be able to come in and play well. I don't understand why it is that you'd want to be able to retain a Ziggy Hood, but yet not even offer a single contract offer to Chris Baker. We'll get into Chris Baker in a second. Vernon Davis ends up signing a $3 million, 3-year, $15 million deal. He was on a prove-it deal last year, 1 year, and I can't remember how much it was he was making last year, but it was a 1-year prove-it deal. Came out, played really, really well for us, caught some really, really big passes. The Cincinnati game is a game that comes to mind where he did really, really well for us. Definitely still has something in the tank. 30-plus, I do believe. Kind of on the downward scale of his tenure in the NFL. 3-year deal for him is not bad, so he gets a little bit of love from that $15 million deal that he's got from us, and I think that's a pretty good acquisition. I honestly didn't think he was going to be back. I thought that somebody was going to offer him a certain amount of money that we were not going to want to be able to match, so it's good to see him be able to come back for 3 more years. Hopefully it's going to be a lucrative 3 years because we need some help at that tight end position should Jordan Reed or anything happen with him as far as injuries go. Vernon Davis still, even a very, very good blocker for us, way better than Jordan Reed, so he definitely has some options that make him more versatile than the current tight end situation that we have. That's going to do it for the retained players. Obviously, the players lost going into that category, Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson. Not a lot of us really saw this coming, although it was something that some of us had brought up, the possibility of losing both wide receivers. 2 very, very lucrative, 2 very, very high-impact players on this football team. A big part of the reason as to why our offense clicked the way that it did was having these 2 individuals, a big third down threat and a big deep threat. That combination was what made this team dangerous. And too bad we really weren't able to put together a really good, productive running game behind that offense with those 2 individuals on it. I think we're going to really, really miss these 2 individuals despite the acquisitions that we've made. Pierre Garçon was an individual that I would have retained. I do not think I would have matched the offer from San Francisco, though. San Francisco needs a guy like Pierre Garçon more than the Washington Redskins do. That offense needs a lot of help over there. Are they willing to kick over a little extra money to a Pierre Garçon, especially out of the first 2 years of his contract? I can understand that. To me, that's not a bad deal. There's some Niner fans out there that probably wouldn't agree with me, but to tell you the truth, the Redskins can tell the San Francisco 49er fans exactly who it is that they're getting, and a lot of us are not exactly happy to see Pierre Garçon go. I, for one, am not happy to see Pierre Garçon go. I would have much rather have preferred to take a Pierre Garçon as opposed to a Deshaun Jackson, just because some of the biggest third down plays that didn't go to Jordan Reed went to Pierre Garçon, and he caught everything that was thrown at him. We are going to miss a receiver that catches everything that's thrown at him, and that is a Pierre Garçon. You put it in his range of motion for him to get a hand on the ball, he's going to come down with it, and that's a huge, huge deal if you're a wide receiver, especially at his age. He's not exactly a young cat anymore. He's got a ton of experience, but his tenacity, his blocking ability is phenomenal. His ability to be a team player and a leader in the locker room, those things are all things you can't necessarily put a dollar value on, but he got a really good lucrative deal in San Francisco, and I wish him nothing but the best. But obviously Kyle Shanahan is bringing the people close to him that he knows, and he knows Pierre Garçon. Now, looking at the players that have been, actually going back to the players lost, I'm sorry. Chris Baker, defensive lineman, ended up leaving. We didn't offer this guy a deal, and I would have to agree there's a lot of people out there that understand the value that Redskin fans put on Chris Baker, because a lot of us tend to look at Chris Baker better than what he is. Chris Baker's not an elite defensive lineman by any stretch of the imagination. He's not. But you definitely want to take a look at Chris Baker from the aspect that he is a player who came up through the ranks, practice squad guy, special team guy, came into the defensive line to fill in a spot when an injury had taken place, and actually performed really, really well and became a mainstay on our defensive line. Those are guys that I think that you want to foster on your football team. Being able to keep your own, within your locker room, to come in and season out, and to be a mainstay. Chris Baker, I think, is one of those individuals that could have been a cornerstone on this defensive line. Unfortunately, management did not see him that way. Apparently, there was some misgivings between the two. This is all rumor and conjecture by individuals who report on this football team. I don't know if there's any truth to it. It's sad if it is, because there's a lot of egos to be driven in Washington, and unfortunately, the biggest egos of all sit at the very, very top top end of this football team, and if you don't get along with what it is that they're doing or what it is that they believe in, then your ass is going to be gone, and Chris Baker, your ass is gone. Unfortunately, personally, if it was me, if I was general manager of this football team, Chris Baker would have been the first guys I would have extended an offer to, besides trying to talk Kirk Cousins down from his $24 million ledge. Chris Baker would have been high on my list, only because I know that Chris Baker on that defensive line, comparable to another really, really good defensive lineman, would have been a good selection for me. That didn't happen, though. Chris Baker's now in Tampa doing something that, honestly, signing a contract that he would have taken here. And we didn't compensate for that at all. I don't care who these acquisitions are that we made, which I will get to here in a second. The Chris Baker, I think, is, unfortunately, a guy that we're going to miss. But is it easy to replace a guy like Chris Baker? Yes, but that's not the point. The point is that you brought him up through the ranks. He proved himself. He deserved to get paid. And we don't pay people here. At least we don't pay you to flourish here. That's just not how it works in Washington. We would much rather pay somebody else's team's talent to come here and play for us at a high dollar value. That's how we do things, and that's how we win off the field. Also, Corey Lichtensteiger was an individual who retired. I want to extend a big, huge high five to Corey Lichtensteiger and some props to that guy. Corey Lichtensteiger being a small individual, I have ripped on this guy I don't know how many times. Came up through the Mike Shanahan era as a guard who was actually a very good guard. I thought that was his best position to play. We transitioned him to center. He was a mainstay for us for a couple of seasons as center, was a decent center. A lot of times that kid got blown up time after time after time. An extremely intelligent player. I don't know if I want to necessarily say that I give him credit for being a phenomenal offensive lineman at that position at center, but you know what? He was a guy who was a part of this football team, who was a mainstay on that offensive line, and that's a very, very valuable thing to say. He was not the worst offensive lineman that we had season in, season out, but he definitely wasn't one of the best. But I will give credit where credit is due. Corey Lichtensteiger played several, many games for us, big high-profile games, and even though there were a lot of times that he did get blown up, there were also times when he did really, really well that I was also able to give him credit for. So Corey Lichtensteiger, understanding and realizing that he's at the end of his tenure in the NFL, decides to retire. So mad props to Corey Lichtensteiger. Good luck on everything it is that you do from here on out. And also Terrence Garvin, we lose him at linebacker. Dude, I don't know who you are, and I don't care. Players added, taking a look at, let's get the cat out of the bag right now. Terrence McGee and Terrell McClain, defensive linemen. Both of you guys signed 4- and 5-year deals. I really don't know who either one of you guys are, and I really don't care. I'm just really shocked we signed you guys to 4- and 5-year deals, because I don't think either one of you guys can hold a candle to Chris Baker. I think that they were just marginal supplements to a guy like Chris Baker. And I really don't think we're going to see much out of Terrence McGee or Terrell McClain. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, and I hope to God that I am wrong. I hope that one of those two guys ends up being an animal for us at that defensive line spot. I'm not very hopeful, though. So I think those individuals were just, it's Stacey McGee, 5 years for $25 million. You couldn't have offered Chris Baker a 5-year, $25 million deal. He would have taken it. You know he would have taken it. What do I know? Well, I'm just Burgundy Fly guy sitting over here talking into a microphone on the internet. What the hell do I know? Chris Carter, linebacker, and Zach Brown. Obviously, Chris Carter was signed to a 1-year deal. Zach Brown, 1-year deal out of Buffalo. Zach Brown's signing was an interesting one to me. Zach Brown's not exactly a guy who I would consider a huge cornerstone at the linebacker position, although he is a massive upgrade for us. And that's saying a lot about our defensive linebacker position. Mason Foster is an individual who I have harped on in the past and have given a lot of crap in the past. However, the difference between Mason Foster and Will Compton is that I feel that if you stick Mason Foster next to an all-pro linebacker at the same position on his opposite side, I think that he raises his elevation of play. I think he will rise to that level. I think Mason Foster's playing to the level of a Will Compton, which is not a compliment. I think that we need to stick an individual in that spot. I would have loved to have stuck Mason Foster next to a London Fletcher. That's not happening. Whether Zach Brown is going to be that individual for us, he's got a lot to prove in just 1 year to see if he's still got what it takes really to play behind this defense and lift this defense. If not, obviously we don't necessarily have to bring him back. But Zach Brown is a marginal upgrade at this linebacker spot. It'll be interesting to see what we do in the draft if we do pick up a linebacker. I do think we need a linebacker or two. But then again, we got some guys on this roster who are coming up, who are individuals that could step up at that spot. Some individuals that we've drafted in the past that could step up and become lucrative players for us. You never know. This is going to be a very interesting offseason as far as the linebacker competition is concerned. DJ Swearinger, safety, 3-year deal for $13 million. DJ Swearinger is a guy that I remember. The only thing that I remember about DJ Swearinger is, wasn't DJ Swearinger the dude that broke that receiver's leg at the height of the concussion debacle era in the NFL? I do think he was. I think he was a guy who was caught on an out route, who caught an out pattern or was out in the flat, and rather than hitting him high and taking a fine, he went low and busted his knee or busted his shin or did something. It's the only thing I remember about DJ Swearinger. And I do remember I put out a video about that. I put out a video where I had given DJ Swearinger props because I didn't agree with the league's policy on fining players and ejecting players and sitting them because of these big league hits they were putting on players hitting high. The only other option after that was to hit low. It's the only thing I remember about DJ Swearinger. DJ Swearinger is actually a fairly decent option at safety. I think that he's a guy who's going to be a massive upgrade on our team, which is not... The safety position is, we have drafted and drafted and drafted at this position, and we still cannot get it right. Bringing in DJ Swearinger, as much as I hate to say it, I'm looking forward to it because he is going to be an upgrade at safety. However, I think the one thing that needs to be taken into consideration is the DJ Swearinger that people are seeing that played for the Arizona Cardinals and played for the Houston Texans is not going to be the DJ Swearinger that plays in Washington. I can almost guarantee that. And the reason why is those defenses were good. Those defenses were very good. I would have taken a J.J. Watt at the outside pass rush. I would love to have had an individual like that and played behind an individual like that at the safety position. You don't really have to do much, to tell you the truth. You got, maybe a 3 to 4 second window before somebody's on that quarterback. You don't have that on this football team. We don't have that kind of a pass rusher. We don't have those kinds of inside and outside linebackers playing on our football team. It's going to be a crapshoot. He's going to have to be able to severely cover in zone coverage and man bump short rudge coverage for 5 seconds, maybe even 10, with the way that these 3rd and 15 and 3rd and 18s go. Scrambling quarterbacks, toss it up in the air, somebody's coming down with it. DJ has the ability to get there and do some things, but if we're looking at the DJ Swearinger that played for the Arizona Cardinals, this is going to be a massive upgrade. If it's going to be the one that played for the Houston Texans, I still think it's going to be an upgrade. He's not going to be as good as he was when he played in Arizona, but to tell you the truth, we needed somebody at that position. DJ Swearinger, I think, is going to be an upgrade. It's going to be very interesting to see how well it is that he does. Now, taking a look, moving on after that, we take a look at the wide receiver position. Obviously, Terrell Pryor comes in at a 1-year deal for $8 million. Terrell Pryor, look, I don't care what anybody is. I don't care what anybody says. Terrell Pryor is a project. He is a project at wide receivers. A guy who originally came in wanting to be a quarterback and ended up getting moved to wide receiver. Phenomenal wide receiver. Great gifts at wide receiver. And for those of you that remember, he took it to Josh Norman last year. Probably one of the biggest upstages that I've ever seen on this football team as far as Josh Norman is concerned came at the hands of a Terrell Pryor. Terrell Pryor is a guy who's got great hands, great abilities, to be able to get up and get that football. He's a pretty good route runner, decent speed, and I think that position suits him better than a quarterback position. I feel that honestly, that this signing does more to help Terrell Pryor than it does help the Washington Redskins, though. Terrell Pryor comes into this situation getting a quarterback that's going to be a quarterback who's going to throw to him that is much better than the one they had in Cleveland. This offense is designed to get him wide open, so he's going to be able to flourish, and it's going to be up to him. However, at $8 million a year, I'm looking very, very specifically at two things. If you're going to sign this kid at $8 million, then I'm looking for two things. First thing I'm looking for is I want to see what this kid can do at 1st and 10. You get this kid the football in space, what's he going to be able to do for you? Is he going to be able to catch that football in space? Is he going to be able to find the holes in the zone and be able to catch the football? What's he going to be like in man-to-man coverage? A lot of you guys think that this guy's going to be a phenomenal piece for us, but he's playing in the NFC East right now, and I think that's a bit of an upgrade as far as the division that he was playing in. It's going to be very interesting to see how well he does. The second thing that I want to see is this kid clutch on 3rd and long. because he's replacing a wide receiver in Pierre Garçon that was massively clutch in 3rd and long. Can this kid catch the ball? Is he reliable? Is he going to be one of those individuals that you red circle and target on 3rd down and shift your coverage to? He has the ability. Definitely has the ability. He has the potential. At $8 million, he better be able to do it. I'm going to be watching those things. I'm going to be watching 1st and 10. I'm definitely going to be watching 3rd and long. What kind of a player are you going to be for us? It can't always be Jordan Reed in those positions. Now, taking a look at Brian Quick coming in at 6'3". Brian Quick came from, I believe he came from the Rams. This kid comes to us he has some potential. I don't really know a whole hell of a lot about Brian Quick, to tell you the truth. He's got some size to him. Obviously, I think he's going to be an individual who's going to be a red zone option for us, and the red zone was definitely something that we did not do very, very well in the 2016 season. We've brought some targets in here, and Brian Quick is definitely one of them. This kid's a good size option. He's got great potential. The kid needs, in my opinion, he needs to have a very, very big offseason. He needs to really be able to come out in camp and show up, and he definitely needs to show up in preseason. He has a lot of potential, but he also has potential to not necessarily make this roster come the 2017 season when we go to start week 1. We only signed him to a 1-year deal, so obviously he's going to be someone who's going to have to come in and improve himself. Maybe this kid would be a better option. Obviously, he's had some issues in the past with injuries, so we'll definitely have to see. This is kind of one of his last-ditch deals in the NFL to see if he's going to be able to continue and compete at this level. Now, that's pretty much going to do it as far as the players that have added. So we've covered the players that are lost. We've covered the players that have been added. We've covered the players that have been retained. Going into some of the issues that have gone on this offseason that I definitely want to cover. I want to be able to hit Junior Galette just really, really quick. And this is something that happened within the last 24 hours. Of the filming of this video last night, I read that Washington Redskins linebacker Junior Galette had another run-in with the police. This individual is turning into one of those head case deal pass rushers that a lot of different teams out there have to put up with, and we are definitely taking our turn at putting up with this guy. For an individual who, I mean, he gets arrested Friday night at a concert in Biloxi, Mississippi. Okay, and he was only charged with a single misdemeanor of disorderly conduct. However, the cops had to chase his ass down, and the cops had to chase, and not only had to chase his ass down, but they also had to tase him. So he was resisting arrest, which is not going to necessarily look good. It's going to be interesting to find out what his court date, is going to look like in front of the judge. But as a disagreement between two individuals, and you know that he was definitely one of those individuals, and he was the one that ended up getting chased down. Coming off an Achilles injury that took you out of the season, not only for 2016, but 2015, you find it convenient to go to a concert in Biloxi, Mississippi and run away from the cops. You can't... Is there something that's odd about this story to you as it is to me? If your ass can't go out and chase down a quarterback, but yet you're running from the cops in Biloxi, Mississippi, there's something wrong here. Why do we have you on this roster again? Because so far, you've been the off-season defensive pass rusher, that has led this league for the last couple of seasons, and it has not produced on the regular season because you're always hurt. Antics like this, I don't understand how this helps make you a better football player. I don't understand. The only guy who's been able to really, really reach Junior Galette, we fired for having drinking problems. He was the only guy. He was the guy that signed Junior Galette, the guy that actually got him to commit to this football team and try to straighten up his act. And now that he's gone, bam, we're not even a month after Scott McGloin gets fired, and this kid's already in trouble with the cops again. I don't know, man. First, the guy is wielding a belt like a Jedi Knight, taking out beachcombers left and right, mowing people over. But yet when it comes to the NFL, this kid can't make it through a practice in the offseason. I mean, I think I've just about hit the end of my rope with Junior Galette. I think I've just about hit the end of my rope, and all of us are holding on to that glimmer that there might be something that is still there, because this kid does have a lot of potential. He can get to the quarterback, but that was 2 years and 2 Achilles tendons ago. At what point do you sit here and say, you know what, we've only signed him to a 1-year deal, so after this season, if we don't like him, we don't have to retain him. But the odds are stacking against this kid every single week. And it's getting to the point now where As an NFL general manager, I might be taking a look at Junior Galette and calling him into my office and asking him to bring his playbook with him, because he's going to have to be a problem for somebody else. Now, moving along into just a little bit of the Kirk Cousins situation, because that's going to transition into my next topic with the NFL draft. Obviously, we have a president, Bruce Allen, who tells Kirk that he wants him to be a Redskin for the foreseeable future. However, we ended up lowballing him on yet another offer this offseason, and then as far as I know, there haven't been any more talks between the Washington Redskins camp and the agent for Kirk Cousins. Obviously, we talk a big game when it comes to signing this kid, but we don't really put a whole hell of a lot of effort into actually signing him, which should tell you that we're not necessarily interested in going into the foreseeable future with Kirk Cousins. Now, my theory as to why we haven't signed him yet, what is it that we have that's upcoming that could potentially shake up the quarterback position that hasn't happened yet? That's the 2017 NFL Draft. Unfortunately, as some of us are putting together our draft boards, the subject has come up before that there is a possibility that the Washington Redskins might be mortgaging yet again their future to go up and get a Deshaun Watson. I cannot begin to tell you how much of a piss-poor strategy that would be. I would be pissed if we ended up trying to move up the draft to get a Deshaun Watson from 17 to whatever number it's going to take to get this kid. I don't know. And it's funny because if I'm not mistaken, when we moved up and gave up the world for Robert Griffin III because we were certain that the Cleveland Browns in the 2012 season was going to select Robert Griffin III. I think they had the 3rd or the 4th round draft pick of that season. We ended up moving all the way up to number 2 to trade with the St. Louis Rams for Robert Griffin III, because we had to get in there above Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are said to want to pick another quarterback this year, and they could be looking at Deshaun Watson again. I really hope that we don't do the same thing. We've got a lot of draft picks. The only difference is that our old general manager saw draft picks as bites at the apple. That should tell you exactly what type of an individual we had in him when it came to making draft selections. I unfortunately think that our owner and our president, who think a lot in the same, who have their head up the same butthole, they think the same way. They see them as community chips, poker chips to throw in the middle of the table that really don't mean a whole lot. Okay, that's kind of, I see them throwing this in for an individual who they have to have on this football team. They have this idea quarterback, this pomp and circumstance, this flashy paparazzi type quarterback that you need to have behind center. And if Robert Griffin III is not going to offer that to you, then why not a Deshaun Watson? I think Deshaun Watson is a first-round caliber quarterback, especially out of this draft class. He is definitely a first-round caliber quarterback. I think that he's probably going to go top 10. But this quarterback class is not one that really impresses me all that much. I think in previous drafts, Deshaun Watson could have very well fallen to the late first round, if not into the second round. But quarterbacks have a tendency to go high. There's a huge commodity on individuals like that. So, with the NFL draft coming up, do I think the Washington Redskins are above trading a lot of this stuff in order to try to get a Deshaun Watson? I would not put anything past us. We've done it in the past before. To me, track record is everything. And I think it would be a very, very, very bad move on our part to do what we did in the past. It took us a couple of years to recover from giving up those draft picks, because it wasn't just the 2012 season that we gave up draft picks on. We gave up first and second round draft picks for the next 2 years. 2 or 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. So it took us a long time to recover from the Robert Griffin III antical era, and a guy who wasn't even on this football team after that. We were still suffering from the ramifications of moving up. I really hope to God that we don't do that again. And if you really want to see me not take my computer and throw it through the window of this house, then really I do not want to see us trade up to pick up a Deshaun Watson. There's definitely some players and some talent that it could be there that you don't have to trade any talent for. Man, it just it makes me sad to even think about that that's even a possibility. Now, first round, who do I think we should pick at the first round of the NFL draft? We have the 17th pick this year. There's going to be a lot of talent that's going to be available at 17. Now, some of the really, really high-end talent I don't think is going to be there, unfortunately. Now, when this idea first got shopped and first got floated, I was not of a high opinion of necessarily taking a running back in the first round. I've taken a look at some of the draft selections as far as running backs go, and I've honestly taken a look at mostly highlight stuff. I've gone around and looked at a couple of games because I was looking at other individuals. For instance, Christian McCaffrey. I've watched Christian McCaffrey play on several games only because I was watching other individuals on the football team as well. And I just happened to notice Christian McCaffrey. I think Christian McCaffrey is a little bit of a reach in the first round as a running back, to tell you the truth, only because there's not a really high commodity that I put on running backs this year. Would I spend a number 17 pick on Christian McCaffrey? Probably not. I don't necessarily think that I would, to tell you the truth. Now, the one thing that I like, and you take a look at the individuals that are available, Joe Mixon's going to be there, Christian McCaffrey, Leonard Fournette, and Dalvin Cook. If I'm taking a look at just those four individuals, first of all, I'm going to have to scratch Leonard Fournette off of my draft board, because Leonard Fournette, I really don't think Leonard Fournette is going to be on the board at 17. I really don't. And one of the major reasons why I don't think Leonard Fournette is going to be available at 17 is because of Ezekiel Elliott out of Dallas. And one of the biggest misconceptions about Ezekiel Elliott is that he's a dominating running back that is hitting this league with his ability. I don't think it's his ability that's really shining out so much as it's his offensive line that's blocking for him. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions about a Leonard Fournette. To me, in my opinion, what's going to make Leonard Fournette shine is going to be the scheme that he gets drafted to. Any scheme, any running scheme in the NFL, I think he'd do really, really well. He's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got the ability to hold on to the football and be able to make people miss tackles in space. The kid's a big target at 6 feet, 240. But the biggest concept that I think that's going to benefit a Leonard Fournette is going to be the zone stretch run scheme. You give that kid a zone stretch run scheme and he is going to flourish in the NFL. Honestly, I think that that's a player that, honestly, I think the San Francisco 49ers would do well to pick up a Leonard Fournette. If they pick up their head coach's zone stretch run scheme, I think Leonard Fournette would be a huge upgrade for them. All they have to do at that point is work at their offensive line. So I'm counting Leonard Fournette out of this race. So you're looking at Joe Mixon, Christian McCaffrey, and Dalvin Cook. Now, out of those individuals, all of those individuals are talented. And the person that I'm going to want to select is not necessarily who I think is better. It's who I think fits our scheme better. I would be looking at an extremely explosive, extremely fast running back who's good in the open space, who's great on screens, who's great on throwing into the flat behind linebackers, great at throwing the ball on third down, third and short. Not necessarily a goal line guy, but somebody who's got a lot of speed and is a huge offensive threat. That individual between those three that I had just mentioned, between Mixon, McCaffrey, and Cook, honestly, the only one out of that bunch that I would waste a first-round draft selection with a 17th overall pick is going to be Dalvin Cook out of Florida State. Joe Mixon out of Oklahoma, honestly, I think you've scratched yourself off of my draft board with your antics with punching females in the face. I don't need that kind of mess on this football team, and I'm one of those guys that if you've got a track record with domestic violence before you even hit the league, then what are you going to be like when you start making millions of dollars? I realize your mama didn't raise you that way, and I realize you learned a lot from your experience, but I realize there's a lot of publicity that went into that, and it happened several years ago, but it is what it is. You ended up playing for a very, very good Oklahoma team, but Joe Mixon, I don't think I would not select a Joe Mixon anything above the third round, and a lot of that just has to do with off the field antics. And there's a lot of other teams that put a great value on a Joe Mixon, and that's fine. But I'm going to take Dalvin Cook. I think Dalvin Cook, the only thing that's worried about me with him is necessarily his size at 5'10 and 210. His multiple shoulder injuries with the surgeries that he's had, I think that takes you out of the every down back category. But I'm not necessarily looking at a Dalvin Cook for an every down back. The kid has got such explosion. He's got a third and fourth gear that is out of this draft class. It's phenomenal. And I'm taking a look at that shifty third down red zone threat. Dalvin Cook, I think, would be a huge upgrade. I think he's the one that fits this offense the best at that position. And I think adding him would be great competition for this running back class because we got some really good running backs on this football team as it is. And it's either going to elevate their play or he's going to take somebody's spot hands down. One of those two. So I'd be taking a look at a Dalvin Cook at number 17. That wouldn't necessarily... I think he is probably one of the best athletes available for us at 17. I still got to do some research on the defensive side of the football, but if we win defense for the first round, I really would not be too upset at that. So the idea of taking a Dalvin Cook in the first is, I'm fine with that. The only thing that worries me is now that we no longer have a competent general manager making the calls with our draft board, the only thing that worries me is that this season was set up to take a lot of bites at the apple. What are we going to do with these extra draft selections? What kind of talent are we going to bring in here? I can tell you what our reputation is outside of a Scott McGloin coming in here is that it's not very impressive. So we have several bites of the apple. The 4th, 6th, and the 7th round, we've got 2 picks out of each one of those rounds. Each one of those rounds offer the opportunity for you to find depth on this football team, and we need a lot of depth. The only place I think that we really don't need a whole lot of depth right now is wide receiver, running back, and probably tackle. But a lot of other positions, defense, there's not a whole lot of players on this team that I'd say that we are set as far as depth is concerned. I would not even throw linebacker in that scenario. I think we need just about every other position on this football team needs a lot of depth. We got some good special team situations that we could be looking at with those picks, but I want to see some good quality draft selections, especially in the 6th and the 7th. What kind of talent you're going to get out of 6th and the 7th? Gee, I don't know. We pick all kinds of undrafted players that do really, really well on football teams. So yeah, there's definitely talent to be found at 6 and 7. I just don't trust our ability at being able to select 6 and 7. Now, having said that, moving on to a couple of other situations that I definitely want to bring up for those of you who did not know about. Actually, I want to thank Redskins Review for the video, the live footage that he had posted on Rabbit. I ended up jumping in a little bit on that. I didn't necessarily know if I was going to have time to be able to do that, but I had some stuff that moved around, and suddenly at the last minute I remembered, oh, you know what, he's actually posting a game. He went on and watched the Tampa Bay game from last season, a very, very good game. There are a lot of things that I totally forgot about this football team in the 2016 season. Some of it was extremely frustrating to watch, but obviously the end of that football game was one that was fun to watch. And I don't know if he's going to be doing that again, but it's definitely brought up some ideas. I've had some interesting stuff in the past that I have done that has caused me to get copyright strikes on YouTube that I ended up having to oust. But I loved watching game film, and I love being able to prevent or post videos on game film. And it's kind of gotten me the idea, the impression of possibly being able to do the same thing live, taking a look at some of this and being able to watch some of the old games and maybe be able to bring in an audience and have you guys watch it along with me. I think that would be a lot of fun, dedicating maybe an hour or 2 hours into doing something like that. I think that would be great. But definitely, with that being said, Redskins Review did end up posting that live feed, and I hope he does it again, to tell you the truth. And if you missed it, it was pretty cool. If you got nothing else to do and just kind of dinking around on the internet and you want to watch a football game with a bunch of Redskin fans, then by all means jump in and take a look at what it is that he's got going on over there. Hopefully, like I said, he does it again. Another individual I want to get a shout out to, of course, was Louis T. and his last video with the Redskins update that he did. He ended up commenting on my rantings about our general manager and losing our general manager. It was something that I ended up being right on, and I don't like being right about stuff like that. It's just something, if you've got a long enough track record with this football team and the dysfunction that is associated with this owner, then there are certain things that you can see coming down the pike, and there's definitely some things that you can see coming down the road that you don't want to see, that you don't want to believe. The problem is when those red flags start coming up, I start seeing them, and it's like, I can't be silent about this. I have to bring it up. I have to mention it. And one of the worst case scenarios for this football team ended up coming true. The only adult in the room is the guy we end up firing and letting go, and that's extremely frustrating. Extremely frustrating. And for those of you that know, there are people out there that are giving up their season tickets. People who've had season tickets in their families, you know, for centuries. Not centuries. I'm not saying centuries, but for decades. People that go back years and years and years and years that have been passed down from father to son to father to son that have said, I've had it. And the thing that's been frustrating about that, that's been extremely frustrating about that, is you've listened to some of these radio personalities talk about, it's been the subject matter for 2 different radio stations. Well, what is it about now that's made you give up your season tickets? When again, this team's been like this for years. I don't think you guys get the understanding of what a threshold is. Look up the word threshold. Take a look at what threshold means. If you get to the top of your cup before your water filleth over your cup, why are you taking a look at the middle of the cup and saying, what happened when the level was here? Well, it's just water. It's still water. It's water from here to here to here to here to here. Why are we picking now to give up on this when it fills over? You don't understand. It's threshold. You can only take so much crap. The cup is only so full before it's over, before it's done, before you've had it, before you said, you know what, the hell with this. I'm going to give up. Why spend $4,000 and $5,000 a year just on tickets alone to put up with this crap over and over and over again? Do you want to know what the difference is between all the crap we put up with in the 2000s and now? Is that it's crap. It's still crap. It was crap then, it's crap now, and the threshold has been met. These people are done. They've washed their hands with it. They've turned in their season tickets and their seats, and they're going to go on to something else. Because there's definitely other teams out there that treat their fans a hell of a lot better, that have much higher prospects and a better future in Washington than the Washington Redskins do. And I'm sorry, but these signings, these offseason acquisitions, we may win the offseason Super Bowl every single year, but none of us are interested in the offseason Super Bowl. By the end of the season, most of us are looking forward to draft boards because we don't make the playoffs, or we go into the playoffs and we play in the first round of the playoffs and we look like we shouldn't have even been in the playoffs to begin with because we play a team like Green Bay that comes in and absolutely steamrolls this football team. These things are all frustrating. There's only so much a fan base can take, and it's not looking like it's going to be getting any better. And that was one of the predictions that I had made. If we end up losing this general manager, then we're going to see some of the same old crap that we've always seen. And I'm sorry, but if this offseason ends up being a good offseason for us, and even with this season coming up in 2017 being a good season for us, it still spells doom, in my opinion, because I'm looking at sustained success. I want to take a look at consistency, and you don't develop consistency when you get rid of guys like Scott McLuhan, and we get rid of guys who come up through your system like Chris Baker. That's just not what fosters a good, stable NFL football team, and we would not know what that concept is if it came in and hit us across the face. The only thing we're interested in is carrying on like a bunch of children, drinking all of our alcohol in our press box seats, and bitching about how much so-and-so sucks and how much we can't wait to give up for the future for first and second round quarterbacks to come in here that can't take a hit from the big leagues. And frankly, it's really getting bad, especially when you have talent on this football team that's staring you in the face, Kirk Cousins, and you don't want to pay for that. You're willing to pay for all this other talent. You're willing to pay in draft picks. You're willing to pay in monies that I don't understand where it comes from. But when you have talent that you've fostered on this football team, why you want to rip that up from the roots and give it to another team to allow them to flourish? This situation should have been solved 2 years ago, and we've allowed it to get this far. Now I can't wait for Kirk to be on this football team, only because I think it's going to be a better move for Kirk, and I don't want the cap hit for this football team. I want to be able to go out and get a quarterback who's going to be just like him. Now, you tell me who that guy is, I don't know. Mitchell Trubisky's not it, I can tell you that right now. But I do think that there's talent that's out there. I do think that there's talent at the lower levels. Whether we're going to be able to draft an individual like that and be able to build him up and allow him to flourish. Under the system we had under Mike Shanahan, I would say we had a much better shot. But with this system that we have now with Jay Gruden, now that he's a head coach as opposed to, well, actually he's a head coach, but now he's going to be making offensive calls. I don't know if he necessarily has the time. I don't have a whole lot of faith in our quarterback coaching carousel to be able to train an individual coming in out of the draft. A lot of question marks, guys. A lot of question marks, a lot of holes, and a whole lot of nothing to see that any of those questions get answered. The 2017 season, frankly, to tell you the truth, I don't have a whole lot of faith in this NFL draft to be able to compensate for what I would consider a good offseason. Our offseason has been mediocre to poor so far this year. There has been talent that has been out there that you have been able to try to go out and aggressively seek for a decent amount of money, and we have not done that. We do not do that. And I don't think it's because we don't want to. I think it's because we're not smart enough to see it, personally. That's honestly what I personally think. So that's going to do it for me, guys. Another fun, uplifting, Super Bowl-bound, charged hurrah. Now I'm going to be putting together a rally and a victory party for the 2017 Washington Redskins Super Bowl champions this year. So for all of those of you who want to join me, you can. So I'll go ahead and make the prediction, like the rest of us Redskin fans do, that we're going to do awesome this year. I'm really not looking forward to this season. I'm really not. And I'm questioning how much longer I really want to be making videos. But it is what it is, and this team is what it is, and it's not deserving of a lot of our fandom, to tell you the truth. We deserve a lot better, and for that, I do apologize. So having said that, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for me in another episode of the BFG Show. For all of us fans of the Twin Feather, we ride together, despite the antics of our owner and our president. Redskins for life. I'm out. Peace.